first of all, I'm hoping you can tell us a bit about your organization, Preaching Peace, and what it's all about.
Preaching Peace is a nonprofit Lori and I established in going back to 2002 now. Started as a website, became a ministry, now it's a nonprofit. We are essentially looking to create a large theological vision that is scientifically robust, spiritually vivacious, truly orthodox, peacemaking. I mean, it's a big picture thing we're doing. So we write books and articles and travel around the world speaking and trying to help. Essentially, I try to convert Christians to Jesus.
Interesting. So you must have a pretty diverse group of leaders then in that, with all those different facets that you're trying to...
We reach a lot of different people. We reach Catholics. We reach all kinds of Protestants, the Anabaptists. I haven't done much work in the Greek Orthodox churches. But other than that, yeah, it's folks from all cultures, all religious backgrounds.
That's awesome. Interesting. Yeah. You must learn a lot about different ideas and where they've come
More
from.
Than you want. When you want to know, that's exactly right. Where'd you get that crazy idea, you know?
So I'm sure that's probably part of what drove you to challenge the status quo, I guess, in the Christian culture, but in culture in general.
I think what drives me to challenge the status quo is the recognition that we really do live in a matrix. Our understanding of reality is really not real. And that's the thing that really is the passion that drives what we do, is to help awaken people that the way they think about reality is not real.
Is there something that really struck you? Like, is there a point in time in your life or something that's been happening at whatever point that decided or made you decide that that's what you wanted to?
Yeah, no, there are some key moments. When I was 18 and became born again, a big moment. Learned to love Jesus, love Scripture and the Jesus movement. Another big moment, meeting my wife. She's my theological conversation partner, for 38 years now. Another big moment was discovering the work of René Girard when I was in my last year of seminary in 1987. Huge moment, 93, 94, when I had a crash and burn, just bottomed out and had to kind of restart life over again. 2002 brought two real big events into my life. One was the wilderness survival training that we do. Another was starting Preaching Peace. The birth of my granddaughter, my first granddaughter, the day that happened, that was huge. So there are a lot of huge moments, but in a lot of ways it's just this long process. Kierkegaard said, life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards, And so at 57, I can look back and go, oh, now I know why that happened. Oh, now I know why that,
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really cool. You say you had to start your life over in 94. I also started my life right on the first time in 94.
There you go. It was a very good year.
Yeah, that's it. So you've got these 3 books here, and each of them kind of has their own story. So I'm hoping you can kind of, maybe not as specific as you want, but just kind of talk about why you wrote each of these books. Like, we'll start with The Jesus-Driven Life. I'm currently reading this, and it's just definitely challenging the status quo. It's challenging myself, and it's been super appreciative.
Okay. Well, The Jesus-Driven Life came as a result of traveling around the United States in 2007, 8, and 9. And as Lori and I are laying out this paradigm we've been developing, everybody's asking the same set of questions. So we just kind of started writing all those questions down, and then we organized them, and that's how the book came into being. I would write sections, and we'd go for a ride in the car, and she'd say, no, you can't say that, fix this, and she was editing so that it was comprehensible, and I think she did a brilliant job on it. It really is, it's my whole life. It's 36 years of study in Bible, theology, church history, philosophy, linguistics, anthropology, just crammed into this little package, and it is a paradigm shift. I've had 2 theologians compare it to Luther's 95 Theses. I've had 2 theologians compare it to Bonhoeffer's Cost of Discipleship. It's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how that came into being.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I know that's what I appreciate so far about this book, is that it's not necessarily specific on one topic or another. Like, it's very broad in the ways that you come at different issues, and it kind of gives you more evidence per se to really challenge yourself in the different beliefs. Is there a part of this book that you found most struggling to put together?
Well, the section on Isaiah 53, I chose not to write for the book because Tony Bartlett had already done this brilliant Bible study, and we had it on the website, so I asked Tony for permission to edit down his Isaiah 53 chapter. And then in the second edition, when I added 70 new pages of material, I knew I couldn't write on the book of the Revelation because my view of Revelation is probably not anywhere near center. And so I asked my friend Brad Jerzak to write that chapter because he's done work there before, and I knew it would fit. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't write where I'm not called.
No, it's great. It's an awesome book. I'm really enjoying it, and I can only read a few pages at a time because I have to kind of sit and kind of mull over and really process what's going on. And
yeah, well, I think I say that at the beginning of the book. That's how to read it. Yeah, don't try to read this thing fast. It'll just give you theological indigestion. You know?
Yeah, it's a new version of Harper. And so, okay, now how about What the Facebook?
What the Facebook came about when, let's see, this would have been winter of 2013. Lori said, you need to teach theology on social media. She'd taken a number of seminars on this and was trying to figure out where our next move was. And so I said, I don't do social media. She said, you have a Facebook page. I said, yeah, but it's got like 100 people on it. She says, start teaching theology. So I did. And next thing you know, we're pushing 2,000 friends and 500 followers, and I've got all these theological posts, so I collected them from last year and put them in a book. And it's kind of the sequel to the Jesus-Driven Life, where I'm taking people's questions and wrestling with them, and then also where I'm getting annoyed at things in the news and wrestling with those. And so there's some funny stuff, there's some deep theological stuff, there's just my shooting off the hip stuff. It's all in there.
So you mentioned that there's questions from the Jesus-Driven Life, or people who have read Jesus-Driven Life or have experienced your teaching.
Right.
Are there very common questions that you get often that you find they just keep coming up specific to you?
Most folks now, having read the book, most of their questions are going to relate to how can I get out of this matrix entirely, because it's so embedded in us, this notion that God is angry or that God is punishing or that God is two-faced. I mean, it's really embedded deep in our psyches and in our spiritualities. And so a lot of the questions people ask are, how can I make this final move and really trust that God is good, really believe that Jesus is the human face of God, really trust that the Spirit with me is the Spirit of the Papa. So they're looking for that certainty that they had in fundamentalism when they had an inerrant Bible and they were certain of everything. Or they think they're looking for certainty. What they're really looking for is assurance. And there's a big difference between assurance and certainty. Certainty is intellectual, and you'll never find that. I mean, you'll just never find it. You don't ever have all the answers, and the puzzle pieces don't all fit. It's just how life is. But assurance you can have. God assures our hearts that God is with us, walking with us, living with us, breathing with us, weeping with us, laughing with us, so that our life is God's life and God's life is our life. And that's assurance. That's just the awareness that God is present every moment of every day, right here, right now. Jesus is smiling, going, interview me, interview me.
Yeah, no, that's So would you say that, I guess, to boil it right down, would your priorities be number one, just our own internal spirituality before like our intellectual? I mean, I know they sort of come together, but would that be accurate to say that that's something that you're really passionate about?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. There's three dimensions for me. There's the social, there's the personal, and there's the divine relationship. So there's the three, and then I would add a fourth, and that's with creation.
Okay.
So the four relationships: God, the other, the creation, and myself. I think a real holistic approach to life really moves in all of those all the time. So it's, yes, I'm feeding my mind by reading hard theology. I mean, I'm stretching myself. Always read stuff I don't understand. I'm stretching my spirit when I pray, when I engage with people. I'm stretching my heart when I'm learning to love those that I really don't want to love, I'm stretching my social relationships, meeting people, meeting new people. learning to listen to their stories, especially when they're different stories than mine. I'm engaged with the creation care, love for the creation, interacting with it, and then of course with Papa. So it's a packaged thing, it's a whole thing. And I think that's what Christendom is missing more than anything else, is a holistic model of life and spirituality. You get the Baptists over here, they got a piece, the Calvinists have a piece, Lutherans have a piece, Charismatics have a piece, this group has a piece. They've all got these little pieces, and they're all bragging that their piece is the best. And I just want to go, put your pieces together and you'd really have something nice.
Yeah, that's a good illustration. I like that. Interesting. Okay, so let's go. Tell us about this last one, Walking with Grandfather.
Walking with Grandfather is a book that was never intended to be published. Lori and I started wilderness survival and shamanic training back in 2002, and I was really dragged into it, kicking and screaming, and ended up, in a way, being birthed, literally kind of coming into a birth canal and just exploding into life. It was very, very different. And had to figure out, how does all my theology, my faith, my journey, how does that fit in with all this stuff I'm learning and experiencing over here? So it was a wrestling process. I wrote this in 2012, 10 years into doing this. It's my autobiography, so I'm telling the story of my life, and my spiritual journey, in the context of kind of walking through these classes that we're taking, or in the sense walking with Grandfather, the Apache mentor who's behind what we're learning. I wrote that for my daughters and granddaughters. It was just sitting on my computer. I figured, someday they'd want to know who their grandpa was. And then last July, I just felt the Spirit wake me up one morning and say, publish the book. And I asked Lori what she thought. She read it again. She said, it's time. So we published it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like those are often, when there's authors who have written more than a couple books, the ones that they didn't necessarily mean to publish usually tend to be one of the best books that they read or that they write.
That is funny, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.